Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today for another Tech Talk with Judith. And today we have Aaron McDonald with us, and he is the co-founder of Centrality AI Next, that's NETX, and the Futureverse. And Aaron, you're the co-founder of Centrality AI Next and the Futureverse, and we want to delve into some of that today. But before we do, can you give us a bit of a background on your journey so far and what it is that you've actually been up to? What have you been building?
Yeah, well, I guess I started in technology 20-something years ago now, in engineering, if you could call digging trenches for cables and laying cables under buildings engineering, in the telecommunications sector, and then kind of worked my way through into kind of more core engineering roles, and then later into product development, product management, and then kind of took a bit of time in corporate venture and then jumped out into the startup world. So I've been out of my kind of enterprise kind of telecommunications and IT realm for about 10 years now, and building companies in the technology domain. I started to get into what's now called Web3 around 2015, and in 2016 started Centrality, which was a venture studio, and what that is essentially a model where you help incubate and accelerate companies who are trying to build technology. We had a specific focus on the Web3 and fintech domain, and grew that up into about, I think, 30 different portfolio companies. Turned that into a formal fund, a VC fund called NetX, and most recently in the last couple of years been focused on bringing together what is now called the Futureverse, which is a group of 11 different companies who've been building technology and content in the Metaverse space. Many of those started out as companies that we incubated in the Centrality venture studio, and have kind of grown up and become decent sized entities in their own right. And now we're bringing them together to create a much larger, kind of vertically integrated metaverse company.
So, Aaron, people ask me sometimes, what is Web3? And I thought I'd ask you to answer that one today, but also, why is it that this is so important? Why should we care about it? Because it is incredibly important, as we know.
Yeah, I think so. Probably the best way to describe Web3 is it's a collection of technologies that are designed to allow users and communities to own digital things. As more of the world becomes digital, and more of the things that are important to us exist in the digital space, until Web3 came about, the only way to really own something that was digital was to either run your own infrastructure, your own kind of computing infrastructure, or what most people defaulted to was have it hosted by another company in the cloud. And the problem with that is that companies change, they go in and out of business, or they change their mind about what their policies are. And so you never really had the ability as an end user to genuinely own something on the internet. And why is that important? I think because as we become more digital and the things we value are increasingly digital things, and the way we interact with processes is more digital, then some of those things become really important for us to own as individuals. And a really good example of that would be identity. Our digital identity starts to interact with lots of different processes, whether they're kind of business processes or government processes, or even just in consuming content or interacting with social networks and those kinds of things. This notion of identity now exists within the digital space, and we've never had the ability for individuals to actually own that thing and be in control of it. It's always been subject to the policies of a corporate in most cases. And so being able to build infrastructure that is owned by communities, it's a different kind of cloud where communities own it instead of corporations, and it's spread out around the world, allows us to take back control of some of those things that are important as a digital society evolves. So things that we value, like our identity or our data or the assets that we own online. And that's really what Web3 is about. It's about enabling ownership of digital things for communities and giving them a choice about moving those and things they value back under their own control.
And the word metaverse is a term that's being thrown around more and more. And are you able to give us a brief breakdown of what it means and why it's so important or interesting?
Yeah. I mean, it's received a lot of hype over the last year. And I think if you strip all of that away, you can break it down into some simple ideas. I think the first idea is that it's just the internet. And the internet goes through phases of evolution, and this is like the next phase of evolution. It's already here. We talk a lot about the metaverse often as if it's this thing that's being built or a thing that has to come. But in fact, it's just this kind of more integrated interaction between the digital world and our physical world. If you could even say those things exist separately now. I mean, we carry our phone around with us all the time, and that's like an extension of our body. We're kind of cyborgs in a sense.
Oops. It looks like you've cyborged yourself off for that one, Aaron. We got you back.
Oh, I'm back.
Ah, there you go. You must have been waving your arms around too much.
Yeah, no. Skynet's after me. They know I'm about to reveal their secrets. So the first thing is the internet's here. The metaverse is here. And I think a really good example of what's a little bit different is we used to go and do things in very separate domains. If we wanted to consume media, we'd go and consume that from a media company. If we wanted to do communications, we'd go and consume that from a telecommunications company. If we wanted to do commerce, we'd do that from a retail company. If we wanted to do finance, we'd go to a bank. And what the metaverse is doing is kind of concatenating those experiences into a more immersive user experience. And a really simple example I think that people could identify with that isn't all about virtual reality and augmented reality is we take two of those things, communications and media, and we squished them together and created social media. And so those two distinct experiences became part of one. And now we're starting to see commerce come into that space with social commerce. And so your buying journey usually starts as a social experience that goes into a buying journey. And even to an extent, if you look at finance, like a really simple example could be buy now, pay later. So that is an integrated finance purchasing experience inside of a commerce experience that probably came through a social lead. And so that's what the metaverse is doing. It's kind of concatenating these very separate things into one experience. And then the last thing I think is probably the most defining feature is this idea of ownership. So if we go back to what we talked about Web3, the metaverse in my mind is the collection of user-owned, interoperable digital assets and content and applications. Otherwise, without that user ownership, we just have what we had before, which was gaming or social media. The thing that makes it different is that the users are at the center and they can kind of move seamlessly between different applications with their own assets and their own identity and their own content.
So tell us a bit more about Futureverse and how that all fits into the metaverse.
Yeah. So I think the Futureverse is a 350 strong team, mostly based out of New Zealand, but in 16 countries around the world now. What the Futureverse is focused on is building the infrastructure and the content to make this open metaverse a reality. So we've got teams that are working on the technology side of things, building elements of those user experiences, like we talked about identity earlier. Digital identity is a big feature inside the Futureverse. And the content that enables us to reach new audiences and bring them on into the Futureverse ecosystem and into the open metaverse itself. So it's a awesome team with some of the best professionals in the world that are really trying to make it easy for users to come into the metaverse and to experience this technology, and for companies to come and build their version of their customer experience with us.
And look, coming back to a slightly different topic here, the World Cup at the moment. So it's pretty much a hot topic. And I heard you were working with FIFA. Is that something you can tell us a bit more about?
Yeah. So when we look at the world in terms of customer funnels, we divided the world into to 5 segments that we thought were really important content funnels to bring people in, audiences into our technology and infrastructure. And one of those segments was sports. And so, like we did with the other 4, we went out and looked at the world and picked, I think, probably the best partners in each of those segments. And if you look at sports, FIFA is the number 1, by a long way. 5 billion fans. There are more countries who are members of FIFA than there are countries in the UN. They're a huge global organization touching almost everyone on the planet. And we were the first company that they chose to partner with to build a game outside of their historically long relationship with EA Games. So this little, well, not so little, Kiwi company based down in New Zealand, we started to build out a new gaming experience with FIFA, the first phase of which is launched for the World Cup. And the next phase, which is kind of the real secret sauce, is an AI-powered game launching after the World Cup, where you'll be able to create a team of AI players that you can own and trade, and challenge your friends to matches in the FIFA AI League. So really exciting new game format using a lot of the technology that the Futureverse has built with what arguably is the world's largest brand. So really exciting thing for a Kiwi company to be able to do.
I think it's exciting for any company anywhere to do. I mean, that's a huge coup, Aaron, and we'll be very proud of your team for being able to do that. But obviously, you
very
have
much
to
so,
keep going, don't you? Because there's plenty of other people who will be looking at you and saying, "Well, why not us?" Well, they're going to have to work hard, aren't they? Look, so if companies are interested in working in the metaverse space, and how do they get help to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to understand is that this is not going away. This is the future of commerce. It's the future of your customer experiences. It's in a sense a future of society. And so it's really important that you kind of get up to speed and educate yourselves. Start to kind of read and research about what the metaverse is. Listen, there's a bunch of great podcasts, if you follow me on Twitter, that I've either spoken on or other people who I think are saying interesting things have spoken about. So kind of education's the first step. If you've got some ideas and you want to start to dive into it, then you can reach out to us and we can have the conversation with you. Our partnering team can get in touch. If you're a startup that's building something interesting in the space, either technology or content, we've got a number of programs for developers. We have an incubator program starting next year. We have a $50 million fund to invest in companies in this space. So there's a range of tools and options for people who are wanting to get to grips with the metaverse or to start to kind of really get involved in building inside of it.
So people would get hold of you, say through LinkedIn and Twitter or something like that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
No, that's great. Look, Aaron, just one final question. Who's going to win? In your game?
In FIFA?
Yeah.
In the World Cup? Great question. I mean, there's who I think could win and who I'd like to win are two different things. But I think tell me both. It'll just be I would like to see someone outside of the 5 that usually do, like Japan or someone like that, to open up the competition. I've been talking to the FIFA guys quite a bit in the executive team. They really believe in the next kind of 5 to 10 years we'll see winners outside of that circle. They're really working hard to expand the game. I think that would be a great thing. You'd have to put your money, if you were putting your money, you'd have to put it on one of those 5 again, wouldn't you? To be the winners. They just have always been so dominant.
This is very diplomatic of you. Well done, Aaron. Look, thanks so much for being with us today, Aaron. And look, really enjoy the fact that you've been doing so well, and so's your team, and you're bringing a lot of people with you. And I think that's one of the great stories. And that's the great thing with this sector, isn't it? It's full of really good people who are bringing others with them. And thank you, Aaron, for spending some time with us today. And if anyone wants to get hold of you, it's through LinkedIn or Twitter, and Centrality AI NetX, and the other one
Futureverse.com.
Futureverse.com. And your future looks spelt slightly differently from normal. So, which is FUTUER.com. Thank you very much, Aaron. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks, Judith.
See you. Bye.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!